Welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Real Fit Pros. It's your boy, Jonathan Loudermilk, the host with the most. And I've got my co-pilot, my partner in crime, as always, Mark, the fitness ninja Zalmanoff. And before I pass the baton over and he's going to introduce another special guest that we have on this episode, I once again, like Bernie Sanders, ask you to do all the things. I need you to like, I need you to subscribe, I need you to leave us a review, I need you to screenshot this bad boy and tag us on the Instagram at the Fit Pro Bros so that we can help more of our brothers and sisters go get what they're worth. Yeah. What's up, Mark?
What's happening, man? That is a hell of a Bernie Sanders reference. Kudos to you for that one.
I knew I would at least get you to laugh, and that's all I need on this because it's just three of us on here.
That's very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Another hot ass day here in Texas.
Yes, sir.
Middle of August, just, swamp ass and sweaty balls. And that's what we got. So fittingly enough, our guest today is also in Texas. So he's experiencing the same thing. I'm excited about this one. So let me give you a little background of this guy. He has owned and operated a performance facility for almost 10 years now, which again, when you think about our industry, there's not a lot of people that really last. We're like NFL players. They last like 3 to 4 years tops and then they're out, So anybody that gets to it.
If you make it. That's if you make it.
Yeah. Anybody that gets to a decade or more has my respect. Spent a lot of time in Birmingham, Alabama, and he is now in Argyle, Texas. He is a TEDx speaker. He's been featured in publications including CEO World Magazine, Addicted to Success, Stack Magazine, Elite FTS, The Good Men Project, and Thrive Global. And he has mentored thousands of individuals across the country and several universities, including TWU, Oregon State, Rutgers, and Alabama. So welcome to the show, Ryan Romano. Happy to have you, sir.
Man, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So we gave you the rundown just before we hopped on. We need a funny gym story from you. So what you got?
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to underperform on this, hearing about everybody else's stories before we jumped on. But I think the biggest thing that comes to mind for me is, especially early on, wrestling's my background. That's how I connected with you guys through Jerry, who was on your show recently. He was my strength coach at West Virginia while I was there. And so as I transitioned and I started doing private wrestling lessons, within the gym too, as kind of a fulfillment thing, and just had some mats and training kids, I cannot tell, especially in Alabama too, I can't tell you how many people called asking if I was a WWE trainer, like if I knew how to basically get their kids from where they are ringside. And I was like, I don't at all, actually. I know Stone Cold, not personally, but that's about it. Very interesting how many phone calls I got about, was I like a WWE trainer versus like an actual wrestling trainer? So I had to have those conversations more often than you would think. So,
well, you at least know that is an option for you.
Yeah.
There is a need in the marketplace for that, apparently.
Yeah. So shout out, if anybody knows WWE, there is a market out there for you.
Well, Ryan, I don't know if you know or not, but John's personal trainer is a professional wrestler in that realm. He's been on AEW. He's currently the heavyweight champ of a local organization. So we're already we kind of got a foot in the door already, man.
Yeah. No kidding. Wow. Small world too.
Yeah, man. He's a real deal.
Yeah.
Kicked my ass this morning and laughed at it. It's great. Super humbling every time. It's great.
That's why he's a great coach. So Ryan, let's get into this. I want to talk a little bit about the current state of your business, and then we'll kind of backtrack from there. So tell us what you do, how you operate, and who you serve.
Yeah, so I think the buzzword in the industry, right, is sports performance. And I think that's kind of the red ocean, if you will, speaking to parents and kids that want to be able to perform better at their sport. But I think what I've really done within the past, honestly, 12 months since I moved out here to Texas is make that shift from just this performance training facility that works on, strength and conditioning, speed and agility and things like that, but really more of like the mentorship, the confidence, the self-esteem. And so that's really where I've shifted my model. And how I target people, so to speak, is I was talking a little bit with you guys before we jumped on, is even when people call, like right off the bat, I say like, hey, look, if you're looking just for a strength and conditioning facility, I'm probably not the place for you, right? Like, because I really want to be able to mentor your kid, and I don't care where their confidence is at now. If I peel back the layers of the onion, I can find somewhere where they need growth, right? Like I can find somewhere where maybe they're struggling just as a person. And ultimately, to me, that's going to have them performing better. I think if you build the person first, the athlete or whatever else just comes naturally after that. So that's really what my model's centered around.
So you talked about this happened basically since you moved to Texas. So what was the shift? What caused that revelation of you to go, I need to start moving things towards that direction?
Yeah, so I think it was so I had a business partner in Birmingham, and just wanting to basically run things just a little bit differently. And then there was other reasons that drew me out here to Texas, a woman, but that's part of the story. So what I knew when I came out here is, for me, is thinking back on it, what would have had me performing at the highest level possible? And that's really the answer that I found. And so I was like, you know what? I'm probably not the only one. I'm probably not some random outlier that struggled with confidence, self-esteem, and the ability to perform at a high level, not because you weren't athletic or because you weren't strong or anything else. It's like, I couldn't live in the moment because I didn't know who I was as a person. And so when I got here, I mean, it's literally like, it's in the logo, it's around the facility, it's everywhere. So I try to I think a lot of coaches try to say like, we want to produce better young men and women, right? Like that's kind of like this slogan I feel like almost everyone uses. But even when parents come in, I'm like, okay, if they say that, like challenge them. Like, well, how, what, like, what, how do they do that? Like get some evidence to where, are they investing in themselves as a coach, right? Not just from the strength side, but do they go to personal development events? Are they reading certain types of growth books that they could actually pour back into your kids? Because if they're not, then chances are like they're really not living it.
Right. And I can see that almost being more valuable than just the training component, because that's what parents really care about at the end of the day. It's not the D1, it's not the professional athlete. It's, is my child going to grow up to become a productive member of society?
Right. And I think it's interesting too, is I think they know that at like the subconscious level, right? I think they consciously call because they're like, oh, I want Billy to be such a good athlete. Like I want him to stand out at school and be popular and like have all the friends and not be bullied and everything else like that. But all of a sudden when they come in here and that first conversation hits and we go through like, because the assessment, if you will, for me is like 90% conversation, right? Like very little of it is the physical side. Like, I mean, I just need to get my eyeballs on, the individual to see, how they move, right? Have you done any lifting before? But I think once they have that conversation, that's where that shift happens, where they're like, oh yeah, no, that, I like that. I like what you're talking about there. I know that we need that more.
Yeah. So I've got a question with bringing that up, because you and I were rapping before, and I run a very similar principle with even till this day, but especially when I was taking over gyms and having to train staff and roll out new things. And we all know how people feel about change and new things. Is a lot of resistance came along with that. So it was definitely an interesting experience having to shift that mindset from just a session by session to here's this holistic approach and how the conversations actually add more value versus take away. But I think the reason most coaches are afraid to leap into that is because they don't know how to do that side of it. And they'll make up other excuses as to why they don't want to do that. But truth is, they just don't know if they have that skill set. So what would you impart and from your wisdom and your experience about, how to develop that side, and what do those conversations sound like and look like?
Yeah, I think everything is literally just about like investing in yourself, right? Like, are you willing to read the books? Are you willing to ask the questions and have the conversations around people that are actually doing these things? We went as far to hiring a independent research firm to find data on this. like from things of suicide, depression, anxiety, bullying. Like, okay, not only are we thinking this and Googling it, but can we pull actual data where we can say like, no. But it's conversations that a lot of people don't want to have. Like, you bring up the word suicide and everyone's like, whoa, shit, whoa, don't say that around here, right? But it's like, that's the problem is nobody wants to have the conversation about it. And the data says that like, if there's 4 kids in the room, several of them, are thinking about these things. And I think that's the most difficult part is, right, like, we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We don't want to step on anybody's toes. Is we say we're this performance-based place. Let's just focus on what we think we know and not venture too far away from having those difficult conversations.
See, that's where that wisdom comes out, man, because when we all start off as coaches, at least this is from my experience, was I was too afraid to be upfront with people because I didn't want to push them away. I didn't want to hurt their feelings. But as I've gotten older, I realized I'm actually not helping them by not being honest with them. And it's actually me being selfish by keeping that in because I'm protecting the relationship and how I feel versus realizing if I really want to help this person, then I'm going to be honest with them. And then obviously we get better at how we deliver it, which is a big part of that. But the first step is just being willing to have that conversation.
Yeah. And I think that too, kind of what you were saying before too, is I almost view it as like a disservice for those that are in here, right? If I'm allowing, right, I'm almost ruining the environment, right? If I have, 7 out of 10 that are with that growth mindset and willing to invest more in themselves as people, but 3 that I allow in the environment aren't into that, then it's like, I'm trying to like, right, I'm becoming a chameleon, right? I'm trying to like wear different hats all at different time or at the same time. And it's affecting the ability, the value that I can have for each individual.
Yeah. So let's talk about what are some of the influences, mentors, books you've read that have really had that impact on you that, when you sit down and you read or you listen to people and you're like, fuck, let's go.
Yeah.
Like who fires you up?
Oh man, what a difficult one. Early on, I have to say it was Tony Robbins, right? That was a big, yeah. Like, I mean, I think that started the game for me. It put me to start investigating down that rabbit hole, right? Because that led me to Jim Rohn and all like his people, and so all those. Oh man, my mentors now. I've had for, I think it's 4 or 5 years. Her name is Deborah Bringleson. Shout out to her. And she's helped me totally more like in the metaphysical world, right? Like energy and focus and, everything that we project is energy. So be careful of your thoughts, be careful of your feelings and everything else because you're pulling those back to you. And so I think that that's become one of my strengths is projecting that energy with these kids, right? Like one of the common things I always hear from people is like, I love your energy. I'm like, okay, good. I'm reaffirming that I'm living that value of who I am. And then recently, just in more of like training and personal world, is actually jumped on board another mentor. Shout out Andy McCloy, who's out in Huntsville, Alabama, and just helped me find more balance in my own life. And so I think that with that balance is I can help these kids, right? It's all the same, whether it's school and relationships or school and sports. For us, it's right. It's work and relationships, work and fun and things like that. They're all interchangeable. So just understanding those principles. Other authors. Oh dear geez. I will say Joe Dispenza is an author I reread every year. That's one that is a go-to like for me. So
that dude will make you question your entire existence.
Dude, and like everything about school, it's like, no, it's all a lie. It's a lie.
They don't want you to know these things.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh my God, my head hurts. So you were an athlete in college, correct?
Correct.
When did you decide that you were going to make a career out of the fitness industry?
Okay. Man, I don't even know. You don't even realize the power behind that question. So all throughout college is I'm actually an economics degree, or economics is my major. Is my dad owns a business, and so the whole college experience was like I'm going to get this business degree. I'm going to work for my dad. Eventually I'm just going to take over his company, right? Like that was knowing deep down in my heart, like I didn't want to do that. So I think the first move of confidence in my life was after I graduated, having that conversation with my dad in terms of like, hey, I don't want to come work there, right? Probably one of the most difficult conversations I've ever had. But I as far as I can remember, that was one of the biggest and first steps of like actual confidence and self-esteem and knowing like my value and worthiness as a person that I ever took. So like 21, 22, 23 years old, knowing that I wanted to get into the performance space, but in the reality of it is actually I wanted to get into the college world at the time. And so I just started cold emailing every SEC school, every school in Alabama, like literally like somebody just give me a chance. And I ended up going and interning down at South Alabama for several months. And then I went out to San Diego with Todd Durkin at Fitness Quest 10 for several months. And then I went and for several months at IMG. And within that time, I was like, you know what? I think I'd rather do something more like on my own rather than the college world. That I didn't really, it wasn't as sexy as I thought it was, prior to experiencing it. And so, yeah, after about a year of just bouncing around and working for free, I was like, it's probably time to start making some money.
Those are some big names there, like Todd, obviously Todd Durkin, he's got quite the following. IMG's a big company. When you were reaching out in that manner, and it's funny because Jon and I have heard this several times now on this podcast from different people in different realms of going, I just started asking and putting myself out there. Like, what was the drive behind that? Were you like, well, fuck it, here we go?
Yeah, honestly, I think I was too dumb to know anything else. Like, I think, right? It's like, when you first start in any business or any undertaking, right? You're almost too ignorant to know like the risks behind it. You just kind of just dive in. And so I was like, I mean, why I'm free labor. Why would they not hire me? Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard if they tell me no, right? And so I think it just kind of worked out that way and building those relationships and then kind of padding the resume, if you will, of just being able to move from one place to the next, and kind of getting that knowledge from, like you said, people that are well known within the industry. I mean, I had one guy I interned with out there with Todd. He had a gym. I kid you not. He's in New Orleans. So, Todd trains Drew Brees. So that's like the mecca of in New Orleans. He literally shut his gym down for 2 months to go have that connection so he could come back and be like, I learned from the guy that trains Drew Brees. And it was a business move for him to come out there and work for free. So it's nuts. Yeah. What people will do.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Okay. So you figure out that's not really the realm for you. So what's the next step past that?
At the time, I think because wrestling was my background and I wanted to like pour into that sport, was kind of focusing in on a lot of that, of being able to help those kids, not just like on the mat, but it was like I always told them, like, they were always confused about like why I was doing what I was doing. And I was like, no. Like the idea is why I pour so much into you is like, I know what that pain feels like, right? I know not what it feels like to not accomplish what I thought my standards were. Right. And so I was like, obviously early on with anything, I was like over delivering like times 10 and being able to pour into them. And then as it kind of molded itself in Birmingham, it led into more obviously in Alabama football mecca, right? Kind of like out here in Texas a little bit. It kind of shifted into more of a football world. And I knew I wanted to actually, at that time, I wanted to shift. This is going to totally change the subject a little bit, but more into like the gymnastics world. Partly because my wife was coaching in that world. And I saw such a need for the mentor side of things. And so I was like, you know what? Like, and so for the past year, it's really been all in towards that market, because I feel like the sport is kind of neglected, right? I think a lot of female sports everybody wants the big three, right? Football, baseball, basketball. Everybody wants to hang the banners of like the guy that's signing to Clemson and Alabama and Georgia and all that. But it's like, nah, I'd rather have that sport. And I know there's a need for it. And I know with one conversation, like they'll be hooked just like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful stuff, man.
So speaking of that, what's your thoughts on the Simone Biles thing with like the mindset and the breakdown and the medicine that she like couldn't take in Japan? So like from your perspective, what are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting because at the time I was almost confused what to think about it, right? Because everything that I preach is like, take care of yourself first, right? Like you ask somebody their values and they're like, faith, family, and probably in Texas, football is number 3, right? Like,
barbecue.
I always have the conversations like, well, so where the hell do you come on the list, right? Like where do you take care of yourself? And so with her, I was like, man, like how could that happen to somebody at like your elite status? But like at the same time, like, damn, like kudos to you for thinking about you first. And then was it a personal move? Was it a business move? Like what like kind of confused about how to think about it. And then obviously everybody in the gym is like, dude, like you quit on your team, you quit on the country, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, but the more and more I thought about it is that I had this argument with several athletes in the gym, and they're just like, because, she talked about the dangers of it, of like physically getting hurt, right? Like not being there, totally engaged in the moment, and like whether she's going to go after it again in 3 years, who knows? But like maybe if you get hurt, that ruins your career type thing, right? So I was like, she does really have a point. Like if I'm not fully engaged in it, like, I mean, I'm not doing that at work. I'm not writing a blog if I'm not engaged, right? Much less like doing 8 backflips over a vault. Like, let's be real here. So I've kind of like leaned more towards like understanding, like the more I've thought about it, of, where she comes from in her decision. Obviously everybody's got their own opinions on like, oh, quitter. And I'm like, yeah, but you've never been there. You can't judge somebody. That's like, I've been around pro athletes. They're like, how dare you spend $3 million on such and such? I'm like, have you ever owned $30 million? Because you don't know what you would do with it. Like, it's like,
yeah,
you can't judge somebody when you've never lived in that world.
Well, I think the other part too was she didn't want to let her team down. Like it's better to like, hey, I'm not in like prime position. Let me let this other person step up. Like that's what I saw.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those, that's one of those arguments too, like you're not going to change somebody's minds about, right? Like they believe like this is America. Like you just let us down. Like you don't even watch gymnastics except for that day, right? Like how do you have an opinion?
And what is she, like 17?
No, she's in her 20s.
Yeah,
she's in her 20s.
Yeah,
okay.
Her 20s.
Dude,
yeah.
I can't tell. They all look the same age to me, man. They're like 4'10".
Yeah, they're damn near midgets. I mean,
right. They've had muscles since they were 9. So,
like, no kidding. Yeah, that was like the old world. Like everybody was like 12 in the Olympics. And it was like, oh my God. Like
just China. China.
Yeah.
But
what I really thought was interesting was Tim Grover's book Winning came out recently, and there were like several stories that cycled through from Simone Biles to Conor McGregor, and like his point was driven home by all these examples, and regardless of the reasons / excuses or whatever, like his point of what winning actually is and how brutal winning is was just driven home through these examples. And it just seemed funny to me how all of a sudden his book's in the news, he's on all these shows and podcasts, and then the sports world's like, here's some more fodder for you. Look at these guys.
Yeah. What people don't understand either is like the what's the word? Like the responsibility that comes with greatness, if you will, right? Like, I mean, and you talk about somebody who is she is the face of the sport, right? Like she's the logo, right? She's the Jerry West NBA. Like that is her right now. And so it's impossible for it's impossible for me to even think about. That's why it's like so non-judgmental of the whole thing, because it's like, you have no idea. Like, you think going to school for 8 hours is stressful. Like, let's be real here. You think algebra 2 is stressful. Like, come on.
Right. Good point, for real. I want to ask you a question. So, as we mentioned before, you've been in the industry for a decade now, which is awesome. What have you found to be the biggest struggles along the way? Have you had any moments where you're like, what the fuck am I doing?
In terms of what?
In terms of, do I belong in this industry? Do I even know what I'm doing? Am I doing a good job? Like, all those thoughts that most of us deal with like on a weekly basis.
Right. So I think is with a lot of people, for me, especially because I made that shift of the mentoring side of everything. Right. And I was like, am I kind of a little bit of imposter syndrome a little bit too, right? Like, am I qualified to do this? I'm an econ degree, but wait a minute. Like now, like I've experienced depression and 2 different bouts of, deep suicidal thoughts. Like, well, now, like, are people going to listen to me, or does that make me more qualified? Right. So it's this constant seesaw back and forth of, because I'm not perfect, if you will, right? Like, are people going to actually value what I have to say? Are they going to value putting their kids around me in terms of trusting me and guiding them towards, just being a better person? So I think that's probably been one of my biggest bouts of just this back and forth of kind of like, am I being an imposter or am I being myself?
Yeah. I think John and I are around a lot of people that have shown us the vulnerability that they are willing to put out there. And we're not saying, you throw all your dirt on the stage, but, there's a lot of people in our circle that have, like one of our primary mentors, Ryan Romano, 2-time felon, multimillionaire, runs an amazing business, has an amazing family. Like, he's somebody we learn a lot from. And I think there's power in being a real human and showing people that, hey, I'm flawed just like the rest of you, but I'm willing to work on it as well. And if I'm willing to work hard on me, I'll definitely work hard for you.
And I think that's what, going back to the idea of like investing in yourself, is I always tell parents and kids too, is I'm never going to ask them to do something that I can't or don't do myself, right? Like, it's not just so much in the gym of like, hey, do X, Y, and Z lift, right? Because to a certain degree, I need to be able to show it and teach it, right? Like, if I ask you to hit a hang snatch, like, I probably need to be able to do it myself, right? So they can visualize what it looks like. But it's the same thing, whether it's things that I'm reading or learning with from mentors or books and everything else. It's like, who am I? Like, that's where I think that's where a lot of people do live in imposter syndrome, because they try to preach this message of you need to do X, Y, and Z, but they're not living that. Like, right? Like, they read it or heard it on a YouTube video and, trying to be the next E.T. the hip hop preacher, like preaching some message, but they're not even living it. And so I think that's where there's a huge disconnect, especially in the sports performance industry. That's what fires me up, is like that whole idea of like, we're trying to create better young men and women. Like, no, you're not. Like, you just want a good athlete. Let's call a spade a spade. That's the reality of it, is you want that football guy so you can post on Twitter and hopefully it's a PR move to get more kids in your gym.
And those guys, those coaches would probably be better off just saying that, honestly.
100%. Yeah.
So we produce D1 athletes. Like, if you just went out there with that message, you would, anybody that can do that would have a clientele. They give 2 shits about what kind of person they're creating if they just went out and said it.
Yeah. Huge market for parents that just want their kids to be good athletes. There's a huge market for it, especially in Texas.
I know how much select sports are in Frisco. It's insane.
Oh my God. And I had no idea, like, soccer and volleyball out here, I had a parent tell me the other day, their child's like 10, and every year they have to sign a contract with their club that they will not it's basically a non-compete, right? Like I was like, what? Like they're 10, a non-compete for a soccer club. It's insane. Like whatever.
Yeah. I have clients that their daughters are in club volleyball, and it's crazy.
It's insane.
So if for the coaches that are listening to this, you know, we have a ton of people that listen, and we know a lot of them are fairly new in the industry.
Yeah.
What advice would you have to, you know, somebody who's been in for a year, maybe 2, and they're still kind of like, okay, is this what I'm going to do full time, or do I go take that 9 to 5?
Advice in terms of like running and operating sticking with their dreams.
Yep.
So literally the number one thing is, it goes along with lines of what we're talking about in terms of honesty, is I think be you. Like I think too many of us, I literally had a conversation with a college coach and working on going back and forth with potentially mentoring their team full time. And I think if I had this, because it's a big name in the industry, and I think if I had this conversation 8 months ago, even that soon, is I may have ruined the opportunity, or even the next stages of the opportunity, by trying to be more along lines of their personality. But I was like my normal goofy self and like just talking, and they're like, you know, because right, first conversation, guards up. So I think that as long as like people can sense authenticity, and so I think that like honesty, authenticity, being your true genuine self, I think people, again, going like metaphysical, right, the energy side of things, people feel that, and people want to be around real people, right? It's the end of the day. It's like, I don't know Ryan personally, but like following him, you know, just via social media, is like Ryan Stewman, straight to the point. Like you read any of his stuff, tell you like it is, and right, and it's either take it or leave it. But like the people, it seems like, that surrounded around him, they like that, right? They like the realness of it. And I think people starting off try to be that chameleon. And I think if you stick to you, that'll take you tenfold faster too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, Jon and I really hammer home with our coaches. We hammer home core values. Like that's one of the very first assignments that people have that work with us. And we make sure that they really spend some time with that and give it some honest thought, because that ends up controlling everything that you do. And back to your point of just being you, like when you're living towards your core values and they're what you want, not what everybody else said that you should be, then you are you, and you don't have to worry about having that guard up, and you attract the right people, and everything's better that way.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest too. It's exhausting trying to be everything to everyone. Like it's impossible. Like someone's going to get mad over something.
Mad, or even it's like I tell, because at the end of the day, right, that's why most of these kids, they need that mentor, is because they're just trying to be somebody that they're not, right? Insecurity. That boils everything. You know, I just gave my dirty secret, right? Like that is everything. It's insecurity. And so it's like I say, it's like there's stages, right? Like early on, you feel maybe anxiety or stress, and then you become depressed. And then I was like, worst case, I was like, if you listen to anybody that's been as deep as like, whether it's suicidal thoughts or maybe like the notes that they've written, the common theme is like, it became exhausting. It became too difficult to live, right? Like that's what it was. It was this war in their mind, this conversation that they were trying to be somebody that just wasn't truly who they were. And they just couldn't take it anymore. That's from a 30,000 foot view, right? Like that's kind of sums a lot of it up.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. Man, this has been fun. Let's do our little rapid fire questions now.
Now I'm nervous.
One of these days, I'm gonna literally have a hopper, and I'm just gonna like, you know, roll.
Oh, and you just draw them out.
Yeah,
I like that.
Make that happen. All right. What is the hottest temperature you have ever experienced, and where?
Ooh, 113 driving through Dallas. I wasn't even living here yet, but I was driving through. Years ago, there was a drought. It was when I was going to San Diego, when I was driving out to intern with Todd. there was like a drought going on and I stopped and I was like, oh dear Jesus.
That's 113 in Dallas is fucking hot.
Yeah, it was brutal. I got out and got gas and got back in the car.
Woo. All right. What is your favorite non-water beverage?
Bang Energy.
Oh God.
The hard stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's this guy. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. I'm friends with him on Facebook. He does this segment in his stories called "Does It Suck?" and he gets energy drinks and he sits in his car and he'll like read the labels, and he's a nutrition guy. So he like completely makes fun of them. And then he's like, all right, I think this is going to suck, but let's find out. And he pops it open. He'll take a few sips. He's like, yeah, it fucking sucks, man. and the best thing is he's from Jersey. So he's got that accent too.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. I love it. It's such a great segment. Anyway, Bang Energy. Do you have a favorite flavor?
You take me as a cotton candy kind of guy.
Hey, cotton candy's not bad either.
See? I can sense it.
Just not peach mango. Not peach mango.
Oh, no. Peach mango is disgusting.
Yeah, awful.
Yeah.
And coffee. I'd go with Banger coffee as my answer.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. I had the black cherry vanilla one day.
That's a good one.
It's delicious, but then I saw colors afterwards. I'm like, I can't.
Black vanilla cherry.
It was like a cherry vanilla Coke.
Okay. Oh, cherry vanilla. Got it.
It tasted delicious, but I'm not that big of a dude. Like I can't handle 300 milligrams of fucking caffeine and 8,000
requires a lower serving size.
Oh man, going off the rails now. All right, Ryan, last question. If you could have a billboard with a message for everyone to see, what would be the message on the billboard?
Empower yourself. Mic drop.
It's a mic drop right there. That's just straight life advice right there.
Yeah. Or put yourself first. Everything's about you to me. I think that's at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. And I think as a society, we've gotten away from it too much. Trying to be the next TikTok famous, right? Like, how do I get fame? How do I get the blue check marks? And it's like, man, just be you.
I love it. I love it. So tell the people where they can find out more information about you, where they can follow you on the interwebs and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So website is upitraining.com. I'm on Instagram as Ryan Romano and on Facebook, just Ryan Romano. And then we have a company page, the Underground Performance Institute, on there too. Drop in the DMs, whatever, I'll I'll answer any questions, anything, help out anybody any way I can.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, we'll put all that in the show notes. The Cheese Man, Ryan Romano. We appreciate you, sir. That's what I'm going to call you from now until eternity. Thanks for sharing your story, man. And hey, Jon, you got something for the folks?
Oh yeah, I think I know. Be like Ryan and go get what you're worth. Yeah. Damn good show.
Damn good.
Leave us a review.